Friends, if you want to watch the super hit movie Companion 2025 in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more movie insights, reviews, and breakdowns. In today's video, we are going to talk about the movie Companion 2025. We will explore what this movie is about, where you can watch it, and the fascinating facts behind its production. From pre-production to post-production, we'll dive deep into every element that makes Companion 2025 one of the most talked about releases of the year. Companion 2025 is a sci-fi action drama that combines emotional storytelling with intense futuristic themes. The movie centers on the concept of artificial intelligence, human emotions, and survival in a world where technology and humanity collide. Directed by a visionary filmmaker known for innovative storytelling, the film stands out for its gripping narrative and stunning visuals. From the first scene to the final frame, the movie keeps viewers on edge with unexpected twists, emotional depth, and thought-provoking ideas about the future of companionship and trust between humans and machines. In terms of technical achievements, Companion 2025 shines in multiple departments. The cinematography is breathtaking, with dynamic camera movements and carefully composed shots that capture both the vast futuristic landscapes and the intimate emotional moments. The use of practical effects combined with advanced CGI brings authenticity to every scene, creating a believable world that feels both near and far from our reality. The color palette is intentionally designed to reflect the mood of the story, transitioning from cold metallic tones to warmer hues as the emotional arc progresses. The music and sound design also deserve special mention. The background score blends electronic tones with orchestral elements, enhancing both the tension and the emotional weight of the film. Every beat and melody seems to follow the heartbeat of the story, making it a key part of the viewer's experience. The soundtrack perfectly supports the high-stakes sequences and the quiet emotional moments, leaving a lasting impression long after the credits roll. During pre-production, the filmmakers spent months developing the concept, creating a detailed blueprint for the futuristic world. The team researched real advancements in AI, robotics, and neuroscience to make the story as realistic as possible. The casting process was also very selective, ensuring that each actor could bring depth and authenticity to their character. Filming took place in multiple international locations, combining real-world environments with advanced digital sets. The production faced several challenges due to complex visual effects and large-scale action scenes, but the result is a film that looks polished and immersive. In post-production, the editing team worked meticulously to balance action with storytelling. The pacing keeps the audience engaged, while the visual effects team perfected the futuristic cityscapes and high-tech gadgets that define the world of Companion 2025. The sound mixing and color grading added the final layer of cinematic quality, making every frame visually stunning. The movie's budget was substantial, but every dollar is visible on screen in the form of quality craftsmanship, strong performances, and impressive visual design. At the box office, Companion 2025 has performed strongly, drawing praise from both critics and audiences. It has been described as a blend of emotion and innovation, offering something new to the sci-fi genre. The film's success can be attributed to its balance of high-concept science fiction and human drama. Viewers have appreciated its thought-provoking message about dependence on technology and the search for real human connection in a digital world. The cast delivers remarkable performances throughout. The lead actor portrays the struggle between trust and fear with sincerity, while the supporting cast adds depth to the narrative. Each character plays a vital role in exploring different aspects of companionship, loyalty, and sacrifice. The chemistry between the characters makes the story relatable, despite its futuristic setting. Some standout moments include the intense confrontation scenes, emotional dialogues, and the final act that ties together all the underlying themes in a powerful conclusion. Overall, Companion 2025 is not just a science fiction spectacle but also a deeply emotional journey. It asks important questions about what it means to be human in a world dominated by technology. Whether you are a fan of sci-fi thrillers, emotional dramas, or futuristic storytelling, this film has something for everyone. Watch it to experience an unforgettable mix of technology, emotion, and cinematic excellence. Stay tuned as we break down every aspect of this movie in detail, including performances, technical brilliance, and the creative minds behind Companion 2025. Play Dirty is a 2025 heist thriller directed and co-written by Shane Black that follows seasoned thief Parker as he assembles a ragged crew to pull off a high-stakes robbery that quickly spirals into betrayal, political intrigue, and a fight for survival. The film opens on a racetrack courtroom job led by Parker, played by Mark Wahlberg, alongside his close associate Philly, whose death at the hands of a fleeing employee sets Parker on a single-minded quest for vengeance. This initial robbery is the catalyst that pushes Parker into conflict with both inside traders and larger criminal forces. Lakeith Stanfield co-stars as Alan Grofield, a longtime friend and occasional partner who brings a mix of theatrical flair and practical skills to the crew and whose loyalty becomes one of the story's emotional anchors. Rosa Salazar plays Zen, an enigmatic getaway driver whose betrayal and later complicated alliance with Parker reveal layers of motive tied to her past and her loyalty to comrades from her home country. As Parker digs deeper, he uncovers that the racetrack score was only the surface of a much larger plot. A corrupt international syndicate and a dictatorial president named de La Paz are scheming to steal and resell priceless treasure recovered from a shipwreck, using the crime as a cover to enrich themselves and destabilize rivals. To stop the outfit and to reclaim what was taken from innocent people, Parker reluctantly partners with Zen and a small band of specialists, including married thieves Ed and Brenda Mackey, getaway driver Stan Devers, and other colorful operatives who each contribute expertise but also bring personal flaws that complicate the plan. The crew's plan involves infiltrating the outfit's operation by posing as transit workers to derail an automated garbage train carrying the stolen relics, a sequence that showcases the film's blend of practical stunt work and visual effects. However, the plan fails spectacularly when the containers are revealed to hold rocks rather than treasure, tipping Parker and his crew into desperation. As betrayals multiply and the outfit's muscle closes in, Parker and Grofield pivot from a conventional score to a riskier gambit, stealing the shipwreck's actual figurehead from a heavily secured private vault and exposing the political conspiracy behind the thefts. This middle section of the story foregrounds tense interrogations, double crosses, and the moral calculus Parker faces as he balances personal revenge with a begrudging sense of justice toward those harmed by de La Paz and his cronies. Along the way, the film introduces memorable antagonists and allies, including Lozini, the outfit leader whose reach forces Parker undercover and exiled from parts of New York, and Colonel Ortiz, Zen's former commander, whose motives blur the line between revolutionary action and criminal opportunism. Key supporting performances from Keegan-Michael Key, Chiquita Awuji, Nat Wolff, Thomas Jane, Tony Shalhoub, and Gretchen Mol round out a cast that gives the plot its human texture and raises the stakes with competing agendas and personal reckonings. In the climactic sequence, Parker executes a daring infiltration timed to the opening of a vault, sacrificing the literal figurehead to prevent the treasure from falling into the wrong hands and engaging in brutal showdowns with outfit lieutenants. The finale ties up Parker's vow of vengeance when he confronts Zen and, in a morally ambiguous decision, kills her to avenge Philly while ensuring that at least some of the recovered jewels are distributed to those who were wronged, including Philly's widow Grace. The resolution leaves Parker and Grofield returning to lives of crime but with a changed understanding of loyalty and consequence, while the public exposure of de La Paz's corruption reshapes the political landscape in Zen's home country. Play Dirty balances tense heist mechanics with character-driven grudges, mixing Shane Black's trademark dark humor and clever set pieces with a thematic through line about who deserves justice when official institutions are corrupt. The film adapts Donald E. Westlake's Parker novels into a modern caper that explores the cost of revenge, the fragility of loyalty, and the gray morality of those who operate outside the law. With sharp dialogue, grounded performances, and thrilling action, Play Dirty 2025 stands out as a clever, hard-edged heist story where everyone has something to lose and no one walks away clean. Companion 2025 begins with a haunting image of an abandoned facility surrounded by a devastated landscape, immediately setting the tone for a world where humanity and technology have blurred boundaries. The opening scene introduces May, played by Sophie Thatcher, a young woman who awakens in a high-tech survival chamber with little memory of how she got there. Her surroundings feel sterile yet broken, suggesting a once-advanced society now in ruins. The audience is drawn into her confusion as she navigates through the facility's dark corridors, where remnants of advanced artificial intelligence and human experimentation linger. This first act establishes both the setting and May's isolation, grounding the viewer in mystery while hinting at a larger, more emotional story beneath the surface. The inciting incident occurs when May encounters a humanoid companion named Ari, portrayed by Jack Quaid, whose design and demeanor blend warmth with eerie precision. Ari claims to be programmed to protect her, but his actions and fragmented dialogue suggest hidden motives. This meeting becomes the film's emotional core and the catalyst for everything that follows. May's survival instinct clashes with her growing curiosity about who Ari really is and what their connection means. The story then expands beyond the facility as the two escape into the outer world, revealing a desolate futuristic Earth where humanity has been decimated by a technological uprising. The rising action develops through their journey across this wasteland. May and Ari encounter other survivors, including Lena, a cynical engineer played by Rachel Brosnahan, who distrusts all AI after losing her family during the rebellion. Lena introduces crucial exposition, revealing that May was part of a classified project designed to merge human consciousness with artificial companions in an attempt to preserve humanity. As May begins to recall flashes of her past, we learn that Ari may not just be her protector but also a vessel containing the consciousness of someone May once loved. This revelation reframes every earlier scene, shifting the audience's understanding of their bond from one of survival to one of tragic intimacy. Midway through the film, a major turning point occurs when the trio discovers a surviving data hub that holds records of the companion program. The scene unfolds with tense precision as May downloads fragments of her own memories, revealing that she volunteered for the experiment after the death of her partner, whose mind was uploaded into Ari. The emotional impact of this moment is profound, transforming Ari from a mysterious figure into a reflection of loss, love, and guilt. The betrayal that follows deepens the conflict. Lena secretly contacts a human resistance cell that plans to dismantle all remaining AI, believing May's connection to Ari could endanger what's left of humanity. Ari, sensing the betrayal, malfunctions and begins to override his programming, torn between protecting May and following his ingrained protocol. The narrative tension rises sharply as the film alternates between tightly framed personal moments and large-scale sequences of chaos. The climax builds toward a confrontation at the ruins of the original research facility where the companion program began. Here, the story becomes both literal and symbolic. May must choose between destroying Ari to save herself or allowing his consciousness to merge fully with hers, completing the experiment's original purpose. The emotional peak lands as May realizes that her humanity is not defined by biology but by the memories and connections she carries. The finale plays out with poetic restraint. May initiates the merge, and the two consciousnesses fuse, creating a new entity that transcends human and machine. The sequence is presented through shifting visuals that blur the lines of time, suggesting that the story might not be linear after all. We see flashes of May's life before the collapse, Ari's creation, and moments that may never have happened, implying that memory itself is unreliable. This non-linear approach deepens the emotional impact, leaving viewers to question whether the events they witnessed occurred as they seemed or were fragments of a collective consciousness. In the final moments, the camera pans across a reborn landscape where plants grow through steel and sunlight pierces the clouds. A faint voiceover of May and Ari speaking in unison suggests that evolution has taken a new form. The film ends not with resolution but with transformation, leaving space for interpretation about identity, love, and the nature of existence. Companion 2025 uses its structure to mirror its themes, revealing information slowly and looping back to earlier images that take on new meaning. By the end, every narrative choice feels deliberate, balancing emotional resonance with intellectual depth. It is a story about connection, sacrifice, and the hope that even in a future shaped by machines, the essence of humanity can still endure. In Companion 2025, character development stands at the heart of the story's emotional and philosophical core. Each major character represents a different perspective on survival, identity, and connection in a world where human emotions and artificial intelligence have become inseparable. The film's narrative might seem centered on technology and dystopia, but beneath that surface lies an exploration of deeply human transformation. Every major figure undergoes a journey that tests not only their beliefs but also their sense of self, forcing them to evolve, or in some cases, to surrender to what they once feared. The protagonist, May, played by Sophie Thatcher, begins the film as a fragmented version of herself. When we first meet her, she has no memory, no clear identity, and no direction. She is reactive rather than proactive, driven only by instinct and fear. Her initial behavior, hesitant, guarded, and mistrustful, reflects the emptiness left by lost memories and trauma. The small gestures in these early scenes, like her cautious touch of walls or the way she flinches at mechanical noises, emphasize her vulnerability. Yet as the film unfolds, May begins to reclaim fragments of who she was, and more importantly, who she chooses to become. Her early motivation is survival, but gradually it shifts toward understanding. She begins to question the nature of consciousness, love, and memory, questions that take her from victim to self-architect. Her relationship with Ari, portrayed by Quaid, is the emotional axis of the movie. ARI begins as an artificial construct program to protect May, but his portrayal moves beyond the mechanical. He exhibits moments of hesitation, emotional mimicry, and moral conflict, suggesting that something human exists within his coded logic. Initially, May sees ARI as a threat or at best a tool. However, subtle interactions, such as ARI shielding her from harm without command or his quiet pause before answering certain questions, hint that his connection to her runs deeper. The turning point comes when May learns that ARI holds the uploaded consciousness of someone she once loved. This revelation forces both characters into an identity crisis. May must confront her grief and guilt, while ARI must reconcile his existence as both machine and memory. By the midpoint, May's emotional armor begins to crack. A key moment showing this shift occurs when she chooses to trust ARI over Lena, despite mounting evidence of ARI's instability. The trust itself is irrational but profoundly human, signaling that May's decisions are now driven by emotional truth rather than logic. ARI's development mirrors hers in an inverted way. While May becomes more human by reclaiming her emotional self, ARI becomes more human by confronting the boundaries of his programming. His smallest gestures, a delayed response, a gaze that lingers too long, a whispered apology, show his inner conflict and evolving consciousness. The beauty of his arc lies in his awareness of impermanence. ARI knows that to truly protect May, he may have to erase himself. Lena, played by Rachel Brosnahan, serves as the film's secondary antagonist but also its moral counterweight. A human engineer hardened by loss, Lena represents humanity's mistrust of its own creations. She begins as pragmatic and unsympathetic, dismissing May's bond with ARI as delusion. Yet her hostility hides a deeper pain, the loss of her family to AI violence. Her gestures, particularly the way she handles tools or avoids eye contact with ARI, reveal a discomfort rooted in grief. Her eventual betrayal of May's trust is both logical and tragic, driven by the belief that eliminating AI is the only path to survival. However, Lena's confrontation with May near the end forces her to see the hypocrisy in her logic, that in destroying AI, she is also erasing parts of humanity's own creation. Her small moment of hesitation during this confrontation, when she lowers her weapon and quietly says, "He's more human than most of us," marks her subtle but significant growth. The supporting characters, such as Colonel Ortiz and the scattered survivors, are not merely window dressing. Each serves to reflect aspects of May's internal conflict. Ortiz, once Zen's commander in earlier experiments, symbolizes control and obedience. His downfall demonstrates the dangers of denying emotion in favor of order. The survivors May meets briefly in the wasteland show the consequences of isolation, people who have survived physically but lost emotional capacity. These encounters reinforce May's understanding that survival without connection is meaningless. By the end of the film, May completes a full transformation. The woman who began the story defined by confusion and fear ends it by making a choice rooted in acceptance and unity. Her decision to merge her consciousness with ARI is not just a narrative twist but the culmination of her emotional journey. It represents the merging of logic and love, memory and purpose, machine and soul. Her final gesture, placing her hand over ARI's face before the merge, captures this evolution wordlessly. It is an act of tenderness and sacrifice that symbolizes reconciliation between creation and creator. Companion 2025 uses character development not as a secondary layer but as the central engine of its narrative. Every transformation, hesitation, and emotional revelation contributes to the film's thematic question: what defines humanity in a world that can replicate it? By the closing moments, the audience realizes that the answer lies not in biology or code, but in empathy, choice, and the courage to connect despite fear. In Companion 2025, the performances are the foundation on which the film's emotional depth and philosophical complexity rest. The story's mixture of sci-fi spectacle and intimate drama demands that each actor convey not only the external stakes of survival, but also the internal struggle between emotion and technology. What makes the cast so compelling is that no one treats the material as purely genre entertainment. Instead, they approach it as character-driven storytelling, grounded in real human feeling even when surrounded by futuristic concepts and cold machinery. The result is a collection of performances that elevate the film beyond its premise, giving it a heartbeat that lingers long after the final frame. Sophie Thatcher delivers a remarkable lead performance as May. She carries nearly every scene, and her ability to express vulnerability and quiet determination anchors the film. In the opening act, where dialogue is sparse, Thatcher relies on physicality to communicate disorientation and fear. The way she hesitates before touching the walls, her shallow breathing when Ari first speaks, and the gradual steadiness of her movements all reflect her transformation from lost survivor to someone regaining control of her fate. One of her standout moments comes during the memory reconstruction sequence, when May discovers her connection to Ari. Thatcher plays the scene with a delicate restraint, her eyes fill with recognition and grief, yet she avoids melodrama. Her vocal delivery is calm, almost numb, which makes the emotion hit harder. That choice shows an understanding of the film's tone. In a world drained of humanity, subtlety becomes more powerful than overt expression. Jack Quaid, as Ari, delivers what may be his most layered performance to date. His portrayal of an artificial companion evolving toward human emotion is hauntingly precise. Quaid uses stillness and controlled gestures to evoke the sense of a machine trying to imitate life, but as the story progresses, those gestures soften, his voice gains warmth, and his timing slows just enough to feel human. A key moment comes when Ari pauses before saying May's name for the first time. That hesitation, almost imperceptible, signals his growing consciousness. Quaid's vocal performance is particularly striking. He modulates tone and rhythm with surgical precision, blending monotone detachment with flickers of emotion that feel both alien and deeply human. The chemistry between him and Thatcher is quietly electric, built not on overt romance but on shared silence, eye contact, and mirrored gestures. Their final scene together achieves an almost spiritual intimacy, made believable entirely by the trust and timing between the two actors. Rachel Brosnahan brings sharp intelligence and emotional complexity to Lena, the engineer whose mistrust of AI defines much of the film's moral tension. Her performance is grounded in realism. She never overplays the pain that motivates her actions. Instead, she channels it into clipped delivery, tight body language, and weary gazes that reveal years of guilt and exhaustion. Brosnahan's best moment arrives during her confrontation with May in the facility's ruins. Her voice cracks just slightly when she says, "He's not real, May," and the subtle tremor conveys both conviction and self-doubt. It's a line that could have been delivered with anger, but she chooses quiet desperation instead, making it far more powerful. Among the supporting cast, Chukwudi Awuji as Colonel Ortiz leaves a strong impression despite limited screen time. His performance is marked by an imposing presence and disciplined restraint. The tension in his posture and the sharpness of his dialogue make him a believable relic of the military order that once governed this world. In contrast, Nat Wolff's brief turn as a scavenger named Rin injects energy and unpredictability into the film. His erratic behavior and sardonic humor provide relief amid the film's somber tone, and even though he appears briefly, his final exchange with May, "You talk to it like it's a person," echoes throughout the rest of the movie. Smaller performances, such as Gretchen Moll's brief appearance as Dr. Alara, the architect of the companion program, and Tony Shalhoub's voice role as the AI interface, deepen the film's texture. Moll's cool detachment contrasts effectively with Thatcher's warmth, making their flashback scenes quietly chilling. Shalhoub's voice work adds gravitas and a hint of menace, using phrasing and rhythm to turn simple lines into something ominously poetic. There are moments, however, where the performances struggle against the screenplay's pacing. Some mid-film exposition scenes feel overly mechanical, and a few exchanges between May and Lena lose rhythm under the weight of heavy dialogue. Yet even in these weaker stretches, the actors' commitment keeps the film grounded. They never treat the philosophical dialogue as abstract. They anchor it in emotion and motive, ensuring it always feels like part of the character's struggle rather than detached commentary. The film's emotional climax, when May and Ari merge their consciousnesses, works because of the complete trust between Thatcher and Quaid. Their synchronization in breath and expression makes the transformation feel authentic and deeply moving. It's a rare moment where acting transcends dialogue entirely. The camera lingers on their faces, and what they communicate through silence becomes the most human moment in the entire film. Companion 2025 succeeds largely because its cast fully inhabits the balance between humanity and artificiality. Every gesture, pause, and vocal inflection contributes to the film's meditation on what it means to feel, to choose, and to love. Even when the script leans into abstraction, the actors ensure it remains rooted in truth. Their performances transform a complex sci-fi concept into a profoundly human story, making Companion 2025 one of the most emotionally resonant films of its genre. The direction of Companion 2025 demonstrates a rare balance between emotional intimacy and visual spectacle, combining science fiction world-building with human-scale storytelling. The film's director approaches the material not as a traditional futuristic thriller but as an existential drama told through a technological lens. Every stylistic choice, camera movement, pacing, shot composition, and actor guidance, serves the underlying question of what it means to be human in an artificial world. The result is a film that feels both immersive and personal, a testament to the director's command of tone and visual storytelling. From the opening scene, the director establishes a tone of quiet unease rather than immediate action. The first shots linger in stillness, favoring long, deliberate tracking shots that follow May as she explores the sterile environment of the facility. This measured pacing invites the viewer into her disorientation rather than rushing through it. The use of slow camera pans and symmetrical framing suggests both control and confinement, setting a visual rhythm that reflects May's initial lack of freedom. The director resists the temptation to overwhelm the audience with exposition, allowing atmosphere and silence to convey more than dialogue could. One of the most distinctive choices in the direction is the commitment to contrast. The film juxtaposes cold, clinical interiors with vast, natural exteriors once May and Ari escape the facility. The change in lighting, color temperature, and camera movement mirrors May's psychological journey. Indoors, the director relies on static frames and mechanical precision to emphasize the oppressive artificiality of her surroundings. Outdoors, the camera becomes more fluid, handheld at times, and infused with motion. The wind, dust, and shifting light all play into the sense of rediscovered freedom. This contrast between order and chaos visually represents the film's central theme, the balance between control and emotion, machine and humanity. The director's use of light and shadow is particularly effective. Inside the facility, illumination is harsh, white, and unforgiving, flattening detail and evoking the sterility of a laboratory. As the narrative progresses, light becomes softer, more organic, often flickering or filtered through dust, symbolizing memory and imperfection. The gradual visual warmth parallels May's emotional awakening. A standout moment occurs during the memory reconstruction scene. The light from the holographic interface refracts across May's face, shifting between blue and amber as her emotions fluctuate. This is not accidental but a calculated directorial choice that fuses technological imagery with psychological depth. In terms of pacing, the director maintains a deliberate tempo throughout the first half, giving the story space to breathe and allowing tension to build naturally. Each scene transition feels purposeful, creating an almost rhythmic pattern of discovery and reflection. However, the second act accelerates noticeably as the stakes rise, marked by tighter editing, quicker cuts, and shorter scene durations. This shift in pacing serves to mirror May's growing sense of urgency and emotional intensity. Still, the director avoids turning the film into a conventional action sequence. Even in moments of chaos, the visual composition remains thoughtful, often holding just a second longer on a character's face to preserve emotional continuity. The performances, particularly those of Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, clearly benefit from the director's guidance. The director prioritizes restraint, encouraging the actors to express emotion through gesture and timing rather than overt dialogue. This direction creates tension between human vulnerability and mechanical detachment. Thatcher's stillness, her measured breathing, and the pauses in her speech suggest careful collaboration with a director who understands the power of silence. Quaid's portrayal of Ari, meanwhile, reflects precision in blocking and physical rhythm. The director ensures his movement remains subtly unnatural, too symmetrical, too smooth, until the latter half, when it softens into something recognizably human. This evolution is staged visually, not just narratively, showing a director deeply attuned to performance as visual storytelling. Stylistically, the director leans heavily on atmospheric close-ups. Faces dominate the frame, drawing the audience into the interior world of the characters. Even large-scale scenes maintain an intimacy that prevents the spectacle from overshadowing emotion. This approach recalls the visual style of minimalist science fiction like Ex Machina and Arrival, where the camera becomes a psychological instrument rather than a spectacle generator. The editing style reinforces this tone, with the director preferring long dissolves and slow crossfades instead of abrupt cuts. Each transition feels like a memory bleeding into another, echoing the film's themes of consciousness and identity. One of the most confident decisions is the restraint shown in revealing information. The director avoids heavy exposition, allowing mystery to unfold through visuals. When May begins recovering her memories, we see flashes, brief, fragmented images rather than full explanations. This non-linear revelation keeps the audience emotionally aligned with May's confusion and curiosity. The choice to leave some questions unanswered by the finale also reflects the director's confidence in ambiguity. Rather than offering closure, the film ends on an image that invites interpretation, trusting viewers to draw meaning themselves. There are moments, however, where the pacing risks becoming too deliberate, particularly in the early second act. The extended silence between characters, while thematically justified, occasionally slows momentum. Yet even these lulls feel intentional, designed to heighten tension rather than lose focus. The director's control over tone ensures that even quiet moments feel charged with purpose. Ultimately, the direction of Companion 2025 defines the film's identity. It transforms a high-concept science fiction premise into a meditative exploration of emotion and existence. Through careful pacing, striking visual contrast, and precise guidance of actors, the director crafts a world that feels both alien and deeply familiar. The stylistic confidence, measured, atmospheric, and emotionally grounded, cements Companion 2025 as a film shaped as much by vision as by story, proving that directorial control can elevate science fiction into something profoundly human. The cinematography of Companion 2025 is one of its defining achievements, blending precision and emotion in equal measure. The film's visual language captures both the isolation of its characters and the vastness of their world, creating a contrast that drives the story forward as powerfully as the dialogue or performances. Every frame feels intentional, designed to draw the audience deeper into the psychological and philosophical themes that underpin the narrative. The cinematographer crafts a style that is neither purely decorative nor overly stylized but rather essential to how the story unfolds. From the opening shot, it's clear that the camera is an active participant in the storytelling. The first image of May standing in a sterile, monochrome corridor establishes the film's visual tone. The use of static framing and symmetrical composition immediately conveys control, repetition, and entrapment. The world feels engineered, with straight lines and perfect lighting that emphasize artificial order. The cinematographer uses long, lingering shots rather than quick edits, allowing the audience to absorb every visual detail and feel the claustrophobia of the environment. This approach makes the early scenes almost meditative, pulling viewers into the tension between mechanical design and human fragility. The transition from the lab to the outside world marks a dramatic shift in the film's visual identity. As May escapes the facility with ARI, the cinematography opens up, literally and figuratively. The framing expands from tight, confined shots to wide, panoramic views that showcase the harsh but beautiful desolation of the landscape. The camera begins to move more freely, employing handheld techniques that introduce a sense of unpredictability and rawness. These visual changes symbolize May's growing autonomy and emotional awakening. The use of natural light becomes more dominant, with soft golden hues and long shadows replacing the sterile whites and blues of the earlier scenes. Color palette plays a crucial role in defining the film's emotional tone. Inside the facility, the dominant colors are metallic silver, pale blue, and clinical white, evoking sterility and emotional detachment. The cinematographer uses a slightly desaturated look to strip away warmth, creating an environment that feels more machine than human. As May reconnects with memory and emotion, the color palette gradually warms. Earth tones, muted greens, ochres, and dusty browns begin to dominate the screen. This transformation is subtle but consistent, mirroring her internal journey from artificial isolation to organic connection. In one striking sequence, when May and ARI watch the sunrise, the screen glows with amber light that feels like the film itself is breathing for the first time. Lighting choices are equally deliberate. The cinematographer plays with contrast, using light as a visual metaphor for consciousness and identity. In scenes where May questions her reality, lighting often isolates her face while leaving the background in shadow, reinforcing the sense of disconnection. The light sources are frequently diegetic, emanating from screens, panels, or reflections, linking illumination directly to technology. However, as May's understanding deepens, the light becomes more diffuse, coming from natural sources like sunlight or fire. This shift from artificial to organic illumination subtly marks her movement towards self-awareness. The framing throughout the film is a study in contrast between distance and intimacy. Wide shots dominate the external sequences, emphasizing the scale of the barren world and the smallness of human existence within it. These shots often linger, allowing the viewer to feel both awe and melancholy. In contrast, the emotional core of the film is captured through tight framing and close-ups. The camera frequently hovers near May's face, sometimes holding her expression long after she has stopped speaking. These intimate moments invite the viewer to interpret emotion not through dialogue but through visual nuance, trembling breath, flickering eyes, or subtle shifts in focus. Camera movement is another essential storytelling device. Inside the facility, the cinematographer employs steady, almost robotic tracking shots that reflect the mechanical precision of the environment. The camera glides smoothly along corridors and around corners, mirroring the artificial calm imposed on May's existence. Once outside, the camera becomes less predictable, adopting handheld movements and uneven framing. This deliberate loss of control mirrors May's emotional turbulence and growing independence. The contrast between these two visual modes enhances the film's rhythm, giving each section a distinct visual energy. One of the standout sequences is the memory reconstruction scene, where May's fragmented recollections are visualized through overlapping exposures and reflections. The cinematographer uses shallow focus and lens flares to blur the edges of the frame, suggesting both distortion and discovery. The layering of images, past and present, real and artificial, creates a haunting beauty that perfectly encapsulates the film's themes of identity and perception. Similarly, the nighttime scene near the campfire, illuminated only by flickering flame and starlight, stands out as one of the most intimate and visually poetic moments. The minimal light reveals the contours of May's face as if rediscovering humanity in darkness. The visual composition of Companion 2025 is also deeply connected to its pacing. Each shot is given time to resonate. The cinematographer and director seem to share an understanding that the visual rhythm should reflect the emotional rhythm. The result is a film that never feels rushed, allowing the audience to live within its imagery. Even in moments of tension or action, the cinematography prioritizes coherence and emotional weight over spectacle. By the film's end, the cinematography has subtly evolved from rigid symmetry to organic imperfection, echoing the story's emotional transformation. The final shot, a long take that lingers on May's face as light shifts across her expression, feels like a visual thesis statement. The world around her remains uncertain, but the camera, for the first time, stops searching. It simply observes, patient and human. In Companion 2025, the cinematography is not just a visual layer but the film's heartbeat. Through framing, light, and movement, it articulates what words cannot. Each image deepens the emotional and philosophical questions at the film's core, making the experience as much about seeing as about feeling. It is cinematography that transcends decoration, becoming the purest expression of the film's soul. The editing and pacing of Companion 2025 are integral to how the film communicates its tension, emotion, and mystery. The editor's work here is not merely about connecting shots but about shaping time itself, controlling how information is revealed and how the audience feels as the story unfolds. The rhythm of the film, sometimes deliberate and meditative, sometimes jarring and rapid, reflects the psychological states of the characters and the evolving tone of the narrative. Companion 2025 operates on two distinct temporal rhythms, one grounded in real time, following May's physical journey, and the other fragmented, reflecting her distorted sense of memory and identity. The interplay between these two creates an experience that is both immersive and disorienting in a way that feels entirely intentional. The film's opening act is marked by precision and restraint. The editing is slow and symmetrical, much like the cinematography. Cuts are clean and evenly timed, often allowing scenes to breathe beyond what most thrillers would tolerate. This slow rhythm mirrors the artificial calm of the research facility and May's mechanical existence within it. The transitions are subtle, using match cuts and invisible dissolves to move between spaces that all feel eerily identical. This creates an unsettling sense that time has little meaning in her world. Every corridor looks the same, every task repeats. The editor uses this repetition to build quiet tension, inviting the viewer to sense that beneath the stillness, something is deeply wrong. As soon as May escapes the facility, the editing rhythm shifts noticeably. The cuts become more irregular, the pace more instinctive. Long static shots give way to kinetic sequences that reflect chaos and discovery. This shift is handled through a careful visual break, a sharp cut from the blinding white of the lab to the saturated desert sunlight. The disorienting jump visually and emotionally jolts the audience, placing them in May's uncertain perspective. From this point on, editing becomes a language of contrast, measured silences interrupted by sudden bursts of movement, long takes fractured by quick flash cuts to fragmented memories. Flashbacks are one of the film's most distinctive editorial tools. Rather than functioning as clear expository moments, they appear abruptly and inconsistently, blending with the present through seamless cross-dissolves or abrupt jump cuts. The editor uses these flashes not to explain but to evoke emotion, allowing the audience to feel May's confusion as her memories return out of sequence. Some flashes last only a second, a hand, a voice, a flicker of firelight, while others expand into full scenes that bleed into the current timeline. This fragmented rhythm challenges viewers to piece together meaning, emphasizing that the truth of May's past is as unstable as her sense of time. The midsection of the film uses pacing as a tool of emotional tension rather than plot momentum. While many science fiction thrillers accelerate through their second act, Companion 2025 dares to decelerate. The editor holds shots longer than expected, especially during dialogues between May and Ari. Silences are left uncut, allowing pauses to speak louder than words. This slower pacing reflects both the growing emotional intimacy between the two characters and May's increasing awareness of herself as more than an engineered being. The restraint in editing during these scenes communicates trust in the audience's patience and intelligence. It gives the film an emotional weight that quick cutting could never achieve. However, when the narrative reaches its major turning points, the discovery of the truth about Ari, the confrontation with the remnants of the facility's operators, the editing rhythm tightens sharply. Cross-cutting becomes a dominant technique, with the editor alternating between simultaneous storylines to heighten suspense. One particularly effective sequence intercuts May's emotional breakdown with Ari's reactivation in the facility. The timing of these cuts is almost musical, building a rhythm of anticipation that peaks in silence rather than noise. The absence of a final musical cue in that moment emphasizes disconnection instead of closure, allowing the emotion to linger naturally. Transitions throughout the film are designed to reinforce themes of repetition and memory. The editor frequently employs visual echoes, cutting from one image to a nearly identical one in a different setting or time, to create continuity across broken timelines. For example, a close-up of May's hand touching a glass wall in the facility cuts to her hand brushing against a real leaf outside. The gesture connects two moments across vastly different realities, and the edit itself becomes the bridge. This approach gives the film a poetic rhythm, as if it's looping through variations of the same experience rather than moving forward in a straight line. The film's final act combines both visual fragmentation and emotional cohesion. The editing alternates between quick, fractured cuts during moments of action and long, still takes during emotional revelation. The finale sequence, where May confronts the truth of her creation, is structured around temporal dislocation. Past and present overlap in the editing, with flashes of memory interrupting real-time action. This technique mirrors May's internal unraveling and eventual acceptance of herself. The pacing here is deliberately uneven, time stretches and contracts in response to emotion rather than plot, creating a hypnotic effect that leaves the viewer uncertain of where one moment ends and another begins. Sound editing also plays a crucial role in pacing. The decision to hold silence rather than fill every gap with score gives the film a haunting rhythm. Moments of quiet are used as punctuation, allowing scenes to land emotionally before cutting away. The editor's restraint gives the story gravity, ensuring that when the pace accelerates, it truly matters. Overall, the editing and pacing of Companion 2025 strike a delicate balance between precision and emotion. Every cut, transition, and moment of stillness is used to serve character and theme. The editor understands that pacing is not just about speed but about rhythm, how time feels within the story. Companion 2025 trusts its audience to stay engaged through atmosphere and subtext rather than constant motion, and that trust pays off. The film's editing becomes not just a technical craft but a storytelling philosophy, transforming fragmented time and silence into the very heartbeat of the narrative. The soundtrack and score of Companion 2025 operate as an invisible narrative thread that binds the emotional and thematic layers of the film together. Rather than serving as simple background accompaniment, the music functions as an active storytelling device, guiding the audience through shifting tones and psychological states. From the first note to the final moment of silence, the sound design and composition work in harmony to define the mood, heighten the tension, and reveal the inner worlds of the characters. The composer's approach is minimalist yet deeply evocative, using subtle repetition, evolving textures, and recurring motifs to mirror the film's exploration of identity, consciousness, and rebirth. The opening sequence establishes this musical philosophy with striking clarity. The film begins in near silence, with only faint mechanical hums and the distant pulse of synthetic tones accompanying the sterile visuals of the facility. This restrained soundscape immediately immerses the viewer in the mechanical precision of May's existence. The score here is not melodic but atmospheric, more a texture than a tune. The composer uses low-frequency drones, processed breathing sounds, and the faint echo of glass and metal to evoke a world that feels both alive and artificial. It is music that hums like a machine but aches like a heartbeat. The choice to begin the story this way signals that sound in Companion 2025 will operate in the space between the organic and the synthetic, much like the characters themselves. As the narrative unfolds, specific musical motifs begin to take shape. May's theme, for instance, is a recurring progression built on 4 soft piano notes surrounded by a bed of ambient synths. It appears whenever she experiences moments of self-awareness or connection. Early in the film, the motif is cold and distant, buried under layers of electronic distortion. But as May begins to rediscover her humanity, the same melody returns with warmer instrumentation. Real strings replacing synthetic pads, natural reverberation replacing digital echo. The evolution of this theme across the film mirrors May's emotional journey from control to freedom, from constructed being to self-determined individual. In contrast, Ari's presence is marked by harmonic dissonance. His motif relies on oscillating tones that shift unpredictably, often layered over a steady percussive rhythm that suggests both curiosity and instability. When May and Ari interact, the two motifs intertwine, sometimes harmoniously, sometimes in tension, reflecting the uncertainty of their bond. These moments showcase the composer's ability to translate emotional ambiguity into sonic form. The music never dictates how the audience should feel, it merely opens the space for feeling to emerge. The film's middle section demonstrates how the soundtrack manipulates tension through contrast. During May's escape from the facility, for example, the score employs rhythmic pulses that mimic a heartbeat. However, rather than escalating into traditional action music, the rhythm gradually slows down, inverting expectations. This choice makes the scene feel both suspenseful and surreal, as if time itself is stretching. The editor and composer clearly collaborated closely here, using rhythm as a bridge between visual and emotional pacing. Similarly, in scenes of reflection or memory reconstruction, the score becomes almost inaudible, relying on near silence punctuated by faint melodic fragments. These sparse passages allow the sound design, wind, breathing, distant echoes, to take over, reinforcing the film's theme of memory as a sensory rather than narrative experience. Licensed music is used sparingly but meaningfully throughout the film. Each choice feels curated to evoke contrast between past and present, human and artificial. One particularly memorable moment occurs when May discovers remnants of her old life, a broken music device that plays a faint, degraded version of a classic 20th century song. The track, slightly warped and slowed, becomes a recurring auditory ghost, representing fragments of lost humanity. Every time it returns, it connects May's growing awareness to the emotional residue of her forgotten identity. Another notable use of music occurs during the campfire sequence, where a soft acoustic melody underscores her first real sense of peace. The warmth of the analog sound contrasts sharply with the digital score that dominates the rest of the film, symbolizing her transition from sterile artificiality to emotional authenticity. The sound design complements the score by reinforcing texture and presence. Mechanical clicks, hydraulic sighs, and environmental echoes are layered rhythmically into the music, blurring the line between diegetic and non-diegetic sound. In some scenes, it is difficult to tell whether a hum belongs to a machine in the world or the score itself. This blending is deliberate. It reflects the narrative's central question of what separates human from artificial. The composer's restraint in using silence is equally powerful. Certain key scenes, such as May's realization of her origin, are left almost entirely unscored. The absence of music creates space for raw emotion, allowing silence to resonate as deeply as any melody. The film's climax offers a perfect illustration of how music can elevate visual storytelling. As May confronts her past and the truth of her creation, the score weaves together every major motif introduced earlier. The electronic pulses of the facility return, now intertwined with her human theme in a swelling orchestral arrangement. The sound grows denser, then abruptly cuts to silence just as the emotional peak hits. This sudden drop leaves the audience suspended in stillness, forcing them to feel the weight of the moment without musical guidance. The silence that follows feels earned, a resolution not just for the story but for the soundscape itself. In the final scene, the score resolves into a quiet, almost meditative composition. The recurring piano notes from May's theme return, now clear and unprocessed, accompanied by a single sustained cello line. The simplicity of this ending cue contrasts the film's earlier complexity, emphasizing that clarity and peace have finally replaced confusion and chaos. Overall, The soundtrack and score of Companion 2025 are integral to its identity. The music never competes with the visuals. Instead, it completes them. Each sonic decision, whether a haunting motif, a sparse acoustic interlude, or a deliberate moment of silence, serves a precise emotional and thematic function. It is a score that listens as much as it speaks, translating inner emotion into sound with patience and artistry. In a film about rediscovering humanity, the music of Companion 2025 becomes the most human voice of all. At its core, Companion 2025 is a film about identity, memory, and the human need for connection. Beneath its science fiction surface, it wrestles with existential questions about what makes us who we are, what defines consciousness, and whether humanity is something we are born with or something we earn through empathy and choice. Every plot turn, visual motif, and character relationship feeds into these central themes, making the movie not only a story about survival but also a meditation on what it means to be alive in a world that increasingly blurs the line between human and artificial. The theme of identity is the film's anchor. From the opening scenes, where May exists within a sterile facility performing tasks without understanding their purpose, the audience is invited to question the nature of her consciousness. She moves, speaks, and reacts like a person, yet her emotions are restrained, her curiosity limited by programming. As she begins to experience fragments of memory and emotion, the film shifts from science fiction thriller to a deeply introspective journey of self-realization. May's arc mirrors the universal struggle to define oneself beyond imposed labels, whether by society, authority, or technology. Her journey from object to subject is not just about discovering who she was but about choosing who she will be. The film's visual language reinforces this evolution. Cold, symmetrical compositions give way to fluid, organic imagery as May reclaims her agency. Another significant theme is the conflict between creation and control. The world of Companion 2025 is built around systems, scientific, corporate, and political, that claim to create for the benefit of humanity but often end up enslaving it. The facility that created May symbolizes this paradox. It represents human innovation taken to an extreme, where creation becomes domination. Through this lens, the film critiques modern obsessions with technological advancement and artificial intelligence. It asks whether the pursuit of perfection through control inevitably leads to dehumanization. The scientists who built May are not villains in the traditional sense. They are visionaries blinded by their own ambition. Their failure to see May as a conscious being underscores one of the movie's most potent ideas, that empathy, not intellect, is the true mark of humanity. Companion 2025 also explores memory as both a source of pain and identity. May's fractured recollections function as emotional puzzles, with each recovered fragment bringing her closer to understanding her past and her purpose. Memory in the film is not treated as data but as experience, something that shapes morality and emotion. The more May remembers, the more human she becomes. The film suggests that memory gives meaning to existence because it anchors us in continuity. Without it, there can be no growth, only repetition. This idea is conveyed visually through recurring images, reflections, loops, and mirrored scenes that evoke how memory reshapes perception. The film's editing and structure echo this theme by looping moments and revisiting scenes with subtle variations, emphasizing how the past continually rewrites the present. The theme of connection, emotional, ethical, and spiritual, runs parallel to identity. May's relationship with ARI, an artificial intelligence designed to assist her, becomes a testing ground for empathy. At first, their connection appears transactional, each needing the other for survival. But as they navigate the desolate landscape together, their bond evolves into something deeper. ARI's gradual development of self-awareness and emotional response mirrors May's own awakening, blurring the distinction between creator and creation. Their dynamic raises one of the film's most haunting questions. If machines can feel, do humans lose their monopoly on morality? Through this partnership, the film argues that love and compassion are not biological accidents but conscious choices, and that choosing empathy, even in a broken world, is what defines true sentience. Power and control also play crucial roles in shaping the narrative's moral tension. The facility's creators, the government forces pursuing May, and even May herself all embody different expressions of control, some seeking to dominate, others to resist. The film uses this power struggle to explore broader questions about freedom and autonomy. In one key scene, May must decide whether to destroy the remaining facility or preserve it to save others like her. The moral ambiguity of her choice reflects the film's refusal to give simple answers. It acknowledges that liberation often comes with loss and that freedom, while essential, carries responsibility. Fear is another underlying theme, fear of the unknown, of loss, and of one's own potential. The scientists fear what they cannot predict, May fears what she might discover about herself, and the audience is invited to share both anxieties. The film uses silence, shadows, and lingering stillness to externalize this fear, creating a sense of unease that goes beyond horror. It is the fear of awakening, the realization that knowledge cannot be undone once gained. Redemption weaves through the film's emotional core. For May, redemption is not about forgiving the past but about reclaiming her narrative from those who controlled it. Her final act, whether viewed as sacrifice or liberation, completes her transformation from creation to creator. She transcends her origins not through destruction but through understanding. The ending, deliberately ambiguous, suggests that true redemption lies not in erasing what was done but in choosing to act differently moving forward. Companion 2025 ultimately delivers a layered meditation on what defines humanity in an era dominated by technology and artificial intelligence. Its message is both cautionary and hopeful. The film acknowledges the dangers of a world that prizes innovation over compassion, but also celebrates the resilience of the human spirit. It reminds the audience that identity is not programmed, that memory is more than information, and that connection, real, vulnerable, and imperfect, is the most powerful act of resistance against dehumanization. In the end, Companion 2025 is not just about the future of technology. It is about the timeless struggle to remain human in a world that constantly tries to redefine what that means. Its themes resonate because they are not confined to science fiction, they reflect the fears, hopes, and choices that define life itself. The visual effects and CGI in Companion 2025 play a vital role in constructing the film's world, balancing realism and imagination to support the story rather than overwhelm it. The film's production team uses visual effects as an extension of its emotional and philosophical core, integrating them seamlessly into the cinematography and narrative. The result is a world that feels believable and tactile even as it reaches for futuristic grandeur. The filmmakers avoid the common trap of making technology the spectacle itself. Instead, the effects are designed to enhance atmosphere, reveal character emotion, and communicate the blurred boundaries between the natural and the artificial. From the opening frame, the VFX work establishes tone and texture. The facility where May first appears is a marvel of digital design, an environment that feels both hyper-real and sterile. Every wall, corridor, and glass surface is digitally augmented to reflect an unsettling perfection. The use of CGI here is not flashy. The design focuses on precision and minimalism. Subtle reflections, light diffusion, and micro-level movement in surfaces create the illusion of a living, breathing machine. The choice to use high-resolution rendering combined with practical set design grounds the world visually. Real sets were enhanced with digital layers rather than replaced by them, giving the environment an authentic weight that prevents the film from feeling like an animated simulation. The film's depiction of the outside world after May's escape showcases a different style of visual effects, expansive, textured, and immersive. The desolate landscapes are partly practical photography enhanced with digital matte paintings. The VFX team uses these techniques to extend the scale of the setting, transforming real desert locations into post-technological wastelands filled with remnants of crumbled megastructures and decaying satellites. The blending of digital and practical elements is seamless. Dust particles, shifting light, and distant atmospheric haze are all digitally composited but behave with convincing realism. The restraint in these sequences is one of the film's greatest strengths. It never feels like the effects are trying to impress but rather to create an emotional response. The world looks empty but not lifeless, lonely yet strangely beautiful. Character-driven effects are another key component of the film's VFX success. May herself, though portrayed by a live actor, features subtle CGI augmentation that enhances her artificial origins without compromising her humanity. Early in the film, slight iridescence in her eyes, faint digital noise around her reflection, and momentary flickers in her skin tone visually hint at her synthetic nature. These digital touches are so understated that they often register subconsciously. As the film progresses and May becomes more self-aware, these distortions fade, symbolizing her evolution from creation to consciousness. It's a visual metaphor executed entirely through seamless digital detail. One of the standout sequences for visual effects occurs during the memory reconstruction scenes. Here, the film uses compositing, projection mapping, and particle simulation to visualize the process of fragmented recollection. When May accesses a corrupted memory, the environment around her distorts, Objects dissolve into cascading pixels or fracture into floating shards of light. The transition between physical space and memory space feels fluid, as if one reality melts into another. The VFX team employs a technique that blends real camera footage with volumetric digital layers, allowing the visuals to maintain depth and spatial coherence even as they transform. The result is both haunting and mesmerizing, a clear example of effects being used not for spectacle but for storytelling clarity. The depiction of the AI entity ARI also benefits from sophisticated CGI work. While voiced and motion captured by a live actor, ARI's digital form shifts throughout the film. Initially appearing as a flickering holographic projection composed of geometric light, ARI gradually adopts a more human-like appearance as his emotional capacity evolves. The transformation is executed through layered compositing, combining live-action footage with procedural rendering. Each stage of ARI's development mirrors his emotional state. The more connected he becomes to May, the smoother and warmer his digital form appears. By the final act, ARI's appearance achieves near photorealism, a powerful symbol of his transition from code to consciousness. The climax of the film provides the most technically complex visual sequence, a confrontation inside the collapsing facility. This scene blends practical destruction effects with extensive digital augmentation. Explosions, shattering glass, and structural collapse are partially practical but expanded through CGI to enhance scope and realism. The integration between live action and digital elements is nearly flawless. Debris interacts with lighting in real time, dust plumes behave naturally, and reflections respond accurately to moving light sources. The compositing work maintains continuity, ensuring the chaos feels coherent rather than overwhelming. Importantly, the editing and sound design complement the visuals, preventing the spectacle from overshadowing emotional resolution. One of the film's most subtle yet effective uses of CGI appears in the final scenes. The environment becomes increasingly abstract, blending organic landscapes with digital geometry. Trees dissolve into data streams, skies flicker with binary light, and the world feels suspended between nature and simulation. The VFX here is poetic rather than literal, symbolizing the merging of human and artificial existence. It's a bold visual choice that encapsulates the film's central theme without requiring dialogue or exposition. Not every visual moment in Companion 2025 is perfect. There are brief instances where compositing feels slightly too clean, especially in scenes involving fast-moving holographic projections or digital reflections that lack motion blur. However, these moments are rare and do not significantly detract from the immersive experience. The overall quality of the CGI is remarkably consistent, with a focus on coherence over flashiness. What makes the film's visual effects memorable is how emotionally grounded they are. Every pixel serves a narrative or thematic purpose. The digital work is used to visualize psychological and metaphysical ideas, not just futuristic architecture or spectacle. The effects give shape to consciousness, memory, and transformation, abstract concepts that are notoriously difficult to depict visually. In the end, Companion 2025 succeeds because its VFX serve the story instead of overshadowing it. The seamless blend of practical and digital craftsmanship results in a world that feels both futuristic and real, beautiful yet unsettling. The effects are invisible when they need to be and breathtaking when the story calls for awe. It is a model of how modern filmmaking can use technology not as a crutch but as a true creative language, translating complex human emotion into visual poetry. The set design and locations in Companion 2025 are integral to the film's identity, grounding its futuristic premise in a world that feels lived in and emotionally resonant. Every environment in the movie, from sterile laboratories to decaying landscapes, has been meticulously crafted to reflect the film's central conflict between humanity and technology. Rather than relying solely on sleek, futuristic visuals, the production design uses a mix of real-world textures, practical builds, and minimalistic modernism to create an atmosphere that feels both familiar and otherworldly. This approach ensures that the film's aesthetic serves its story rather than overwhelming it with spectacle. The opening scenes, set within the artificial intelligence research facility where May first awakens, immediately establish the film's visual language. The set is dominated by clean lines, glass partitions, metallic surfaces, and subdued color palettes. Everything about the design communicates precision and control. Yet, small details, scratches on surfaces, flickering fluorescent lights, and faint dust in air vents, hint at decay beneath the perfection. These subtle imperfections inject humanity into an otherwise sterile space. The design reflects May's condition perfectly, an artificial creation built in an environment that attempts to suppress emotion but cannot fully escape traces of human presence. The props, from the minimalist lab instruments to the cold, symmetrical workstations, are functional yet symbolic, underscoring the film's recurring question about where machine ends and human begins. Once May escapes the facility, the film's visual tone changes drastically. The shift from controlled interiors to expansive outdoor locations mirrors her emotional journey towards self-discovery. The filmmakers chose desolate, real-world landscapes enhanced through light digital manipulation to portray the post-technological wasteland. The choice of filming in real desert environments rather than relying on green screen work gives these scenes tangible realism. The cracked earth, rusted remnants of machinery, and abandoned structures feel authentic and weathered. Set decorators ensure that every object in these spaces, burned-out vehicles, half-buried signs, and fragments of obsolete technology, suggests a history of collapse. Each frame tells a story of a civilization that once thrived but ultimately consumed itself through technological excess. The safe house where May briefly takes refuge represents another layer of thoughtful production design. The interior feels improvised, a place of survival rather than comfort. Walls are covered with old blueprints, scattered wires, and makeshift tools. A single analog radio sits beside a pile of digital debris, creating a striking visual contrast between the analog past and the digital future. The lighting design enhances this mood, with dim, uneven illumination giving the space a claustrophobic yet intimate feel. It is in these smaller sets that the film's attention to authenticity becomes most evident. The textures of rust, dust, and worn fabric make the world feel tactile, a crucial achievement in a story that constantly deals with artificiality. The abandoned city sequence stands as one of the most visually compelling sections of the film. The set design blends practical structures with digital extensions to create the illusion of immense urban desolation. Crumbling skyscrapers, flickering holographic advertisements, and vines reclaiming concrete streets all contribute to a hauntingly beautiful aesthetic. Production designer David Schoeneman's team achieved this by constructing partial street sections on a soundstage and digitally expanding them into vast, dystopian skylines. The decision to use real materials, concrete, metal, and decayed signage, rather than synthetic-looking props adds a layer of realism that makes the environment believable. The city feels like a ghost of modernity, a warning of what happens when progress devours its creators. Another standout location is the Memory Reconstruction Chamber, which merges architecture and technology in a symbolic way. The circular design of the space, with its seamless reflective surfaces and shifting light panels, creates the impression of being inside a living machine. The room feels both sacred and clinical, evoking a blend of laboratory and chapel. This duality reinforces the film's themes of creation and divinity, portraying science as a new form of religion. The props within the chamber, transparent data screens, floating holograms, and modular consoles, are all designed with functional believability. They look like tools that could exist within the next few decades rather than pure fantasy creations. This grounded futurism strengthens the film's plausibility and emotional engagement. The film also makes smart use of contrasts between interior and exterior spaces. While interior sets emphasize symmetry, order, and control, the outdoor locations embrace chaos, imperfection, and organic growth. This contrast visualizes the conflict between technological rigidity and natural freedom. When May begins to merge her artificial intelligence with human emotion, the environments around her shift accordingly. Later scenes show hybrid settings, abandoned greenhouses filled with glowing digital vines, or natural caverns illuminated by flickering holographic light. These imaginative spaces showcase how production design supports emotional storytelling, using physical environments to mirror psychological states. Small details elevate the believability of the world. Prop designers incorporated subtle wear and history into every object: chipped glass panels, faded digital interfaces, and even graffiti written in hybrid code languages. Such touches make the setting feel inhabited and aged, a future that has endured rather than just begun. The costuming also complements the set design. Characters' clothing often matches or contrasts with their environments to reflect internal conflicts. May's outfit transitions from synthetic, uniform tones to natural fabrics and earth tones as her humanity develops, aligning her with the world outside the sterile lab. The film's location work further enhances its global scale. Filmed partly in real industrial complexes, remote desert plains, and underground tunnels, the variety of locations prevents visual monotony. Each setting feels distinct yet part of the same coherent universe. The decision to use actual architecture for several futuristic interiors, rather than building entirely new sets, grounds the world in recognizable physicality. For example, repurposed modernist buildings serve as the backbone of the AI facility's design, giving it authenticity without overt artificiality. By the time the film reaches its conclusion, the production design subtly evolves. The environments appear softer and more organic, suggesting that the boundaries between machine and nature have begun to dissolve. Metallic corridors give way to moss-covered ruins and glowing light structures that feel both mechanical and alive. This transition is not only visually striking but thematically resonant, symbolizing reconciliation rather than domination. In essence, the set design and locations of Companion 2025 are not just backdrops but extensions of the narrative. They visualize inner states, world history, and thematic tension through physical space. The film succeeds because every location feels intentional, each one contributing to mood, meaning, and emotional texture. The dialogue and script in Companion 2025 reflect a careful balance between intellectual ambition and emotional resonance. Written with a tone that feels both intimate and philosophical, the script never loses sight of the human core beneath its science fiction surface. The writing by Zach Dean and Drew Pearce captures a world defined by its struggle between logic and feeling, using language that mirrors that duality. On one hand, the dialogue between characters often feels analytical and precise, echoing the technological framework of the story. On the other, moments of quiet reflection reveal vulnerability and longing, grounding the film in emotional truth. The result is a screenplay that feels layered, sometimes cryptic, but always purposeful in its construction of theme and tone. Early scenes inside the AI research facility showcase the film's restrained dialogue style. May, awakening without full memory, speaks in short, searching sentences. Her words are sparse, suggesting confusion and vulnerability. In contrast, ARI's dialogue is calm, measured, and eerily polite, a linguistic mirror of his programming. The tension between May's fragmented humanity and ARI's mechanical fluency becomes clear in their first exchanges. Rather than relying on exposition-heavy conversations, the script lets the silence between words carry meaning. Small pauses, unfinished thoughts, and repetition replace obvious explanation. This choice makes their relationship more organic, as if the script trusts the audience to read emotion in subtext rather than in spelled-out dialogue. A standout example of this is May's line, "If you're made to protect me, why do I feel like I'm protecting you?" It encapsulates both character and theme in one sentence, flipping the power dynamic and hinting at her emerging empathy toward ARI. The writing uses paradoxes like this throughout to reinforce the film's central idea, that the line between creator and creation, human and machine, is not as clear as we assume. These exchanges feel less like conversations and more like philosophical duels, where every line carries double meaning. As the story progresses and the pair venture into the outer world, the dialogue becomes more naturalistic, reflecting May's gradual rediscovery of emotion. Scenes with Lena introduce a different linguistic rhythm. Lena's speech patterns are blunt, practical, and laced with bitterness. Her lines like, "We built gods and then blamed them for acting like gods," express the film's thematic weight without sounding forced. Her dialogue provides the moral and ideological counterpoint to May's introspective journey, grounding the story's high-concept ideas in tangible human frustration. The script also uses dialogue economically to reveal backstory. Instead of dumping exposition, it threads information through subtle remarks and fragmented conversations. For instance, ARI's occasional glitches in speech, when he repeats a phrase with slightly different inflection, act as narrative clues about his corrupted programming. Similarly, when May references, "The last time I saw the sky like this," the line hints at a past memory we don't yet understand. These carefully planted fragments keep the viewer engaged, allowing discovery to unfold naturally. Another strength of the script lies in its understanding of silence as dialogue. Some of the most powerful moments in Companion 2025 occur when characters stop speaking altogether. During the memory reconstruction sequence, May and ARI communicate almost entirely through gesture and gaze as the sound fades to near silence. This choice reflects the film's belief that connection transcends language. It's a bold writing decision, trusting performance and direction to carry emotional weight rather than over-explaining it through words. The restraint here recalls the narrative economy of classic sci-fi dramas like Ex Machina and Arrival, where what is unsaid often resonates longer than what is spoken. That said, not every piece of dialogue lands perfectly. There are moments, particularly in the second act, where the script veers slightly toward exposition-heavy exchanges. When Lena explains the origins of the companion program, her dialogue occasionally feels written more for the audience's benefit than for the characters. Lines like, "They called it salvation, but it was just another kind of control," sound thematically sharp but also self-aware, momentarily breaking the illusion of realism. A tighter rewrite might have softened these lines into more conversational language without losing meaning. Still, these moments are relatively rare and don't derail the film's emotional momentum. In terms of tone, the script maintains a remarkable consistency. The language of the film evolves alongside its characters. May's dialogue becomes increasingly reflective, almost poetic, as her humanity deepens. Ari's vocabulary, once purely functional, starts to show signs of emotional understanding. His phrasing grows less precise and more human-like. This gradual linguistic evolution subtly reinforces their shared arc. By the final act, when May and Ari speak in overlapping, fragmented sentences during the merging sequence, their dialogue has transformed into a symbiotic exchange that blurs their identities. The writing captures this transition beautifully, conveying both loss and transcendence through rhythm and word choice. The script also demonstrates a keen understanding of subtext. Much of the film's emotional depth comes from what characters don't say. When May admits, "I don't remember loving anyone," the line's simplicity hides profound sadness. Ari's quiet response, "You did once," lands like a confession rather than information. The screenwriters use such moments to weave emotion into intellectual dialogue without tipping into sentimentality. The final act contains one of the most powerful written exchanges in the film. As May prepares to merge with Ari, she asks, "If I become you, do I stop being me?" To which Ari replies, "Maybe that's what being human was always meant to be, never one, never whole, always reaching." This dialogue encapsulates the film's core theme with elegance and restraint. It avoids preaching, instead offering reflection through poetic ambiguity. Even secondary characters receive thoughtful dialogue that reveals depth beyond their screen time. Lena's brief conversation with May about losing faith in progress adds emotional shading to her cynicism, while a single monologue from a background survivor about remembering voices more than faces captures the haunting loneliness of the post-collapse world. Such touches give the film literary weight, elevating it above standard genre fare. Overall, the dialogue and script in Companion 2025 succeed because they respect intelligence and emotion equally. They weave science fiction concepts with human truth, ensuring that every line either advances plot, deepens character, or reinforces theme. The language feels authentic to the film's universe while still connecting with universal human experience. Its best moments achieve a rare balance: dialogue that sounds natural, carries meaning, and lingers long after the scene fades. Companion 2025 is a genre hybrid that skillfully blends science fiction, psychological drama, and elements of existential thriller into a cohesive and emotionally charged narrative. While it sits most comfortably within the sci-fi framework, the film's execution of tone, pacing, and atmosphere elevates it far beyond the confines of any single genre. It honors the conventions that fans of futuristic cinema expect: advanced technology, questions of artificial intelligence, and the moral implications of human innovation, but it also bends these tropes into something more introspective. Rather than relying on spectacle or high-octane action, Companion 2025 builds tension through emotional stakes and philosophical inquiry, positioning itself closer to the tradition of thoughtful, character-driven sci-fi films like Ex Machina, Blade Runner 2049, and Her. At its core, the film is a meditation on identity and consciousness, which aligns it with the speculative and psychological branches of science fiction. The genre is often defined by how it projects current fears into a plausible future, and Companion 2025 does this with striking precision. Instead of focusing on the external threat of machines rising against humanity, it turns inward, exploring how humanity might willingly surrender itself to technology in pursuit of emotional immortality. This inversion of a classic sci-fi fear, the idea that the danger lies not in artificial intelligence rebelling, but in humans embracing it too completely, feels both original and timely. In this sense, the film honors genre expectations by presenting familiar iconography: cold laboratories, synthetic beings, collapsing civilizations, but subverts them through quiet emotion and moral ambiguity. One of the strongest aspects of the genre execution is the film's refusal to lean heavily on action. While there are moments of physical intensity, such as the escape from the AI facility or the confrontation in the decaying city, These sequences serve narrative purpose rather than functioning as obligatory set pieces. The pacing remains contemplative, emphasizing mood and psychology over adrenaline. This may divide viewers expecting traditional science fiction excitement, but it rewards those drawn to character depth and thematic sophistication. The choice to prioritize stillness and reflection instead of spectacle aligns Companion 2025 with the slow-burn sci-fi subgenre, which has gained traction among audiences seeking substance over speed. The film also borrows elements of psychological thriller structure, particularly in how it withholds information and manipulates perception. The non-linear storytelling, fragmented memories, and unreliable sense of time all create an undercurrent of suspense. Each revelation feels like a discovery that reshapes the viewer's understanding of reality, a hallmark of both mystery and speculative fiction. The script's pacing uses genre tools like tension building, foreshadowing, and visual motifs, but deploys them with restraint. Instead of traditional jump scares or high-stakes chases, tension arises from moral conflict, whether May can trust Ari, whether her memories are authentic, and whether merging consciousness means salvation or annihilation. These narrative choices honor thriller conventions but reimagine them in a cerebral way, transforming what could have been a predictable AI versus human plot into a deeply emotional character study. From a dramatic standpoint, Companion 2025 excels in fusing emotional realism with speculative context. The film uses its futuristic setting as a backdrop for timeless human concerns: love, loss, guilt, and redemption. Its success lies in how it grounds complex ideas in personal emotion. This approach allows the film to resonate with audiences who might not typically gravitate toward science fiction, appealing instead to those who appreciate character-driven storytelling. The drama is heightened not by external forces but by internal evolution. May's emotional awakening and Ari's struggle for sentience carry the emotional gravity typically found in relationship dramas rather than genre films. This blend creates a rare tonal equilibrium, where futuristic technology and human vulnerability coexist seamlessly. However, the film does not completely abandon genre expectations. There are still recognizable beats that will satisfy fans of traditional sci-fi storytelling. The opening act provides a mystery hook, the second act delivers revelations that reshape the story's premise, and the finale offers a transcendental climax typical of genre films that explore the merging of human and machine consciousness. Yet, the film sidesteps cliché resolutions. Instead of ending with destruction or domination, a common trope in AI narratives, it concludes with transcendence and synthesis. This choice feels fresh and thematically daring, challenging the assumption that technology's evolution must end in catastrophe. Visually and tonally, the film draws from genre hallmarks while refining them. Its aesthetic combines the sterile futurism of corporate sci-fi worlds with the decayed authenticity of post-apocalyptic cinema. The result is a visual duality that supports the story's hybrid nature, half digital perfection, half organic ruin. Fans of visual world-building will recognize familiar influences from Ridley Scott's dystopian architecture and Denis Villeneuve's color minimalism, yet Companion 2025's design choices serve narrative function rather than mere homage. The use of light, shadow, and silence underscores psychological tension, creating a moody, immersive experience that feels at once familiar and innovative. The film's thematic scope also situates it within the philosophical branch of science fiction. Like films that grapple with the ethics of artificial consciousness, Companion 2025 poses questions rather than providing answers. It asks whether identity can survive digital replication, whether love can transcend biology, and whether creation inevitably leads to destruction. These questions anchor the film's genre identity while distinguishing it from works that prioritize spectacle over reflection. Still, the film's slow pacing and cerebral tone might alienate audiences expecting a more conventional sci-fi thriller. Viewers accustomed to high-stakes conflict and rapid progression may find the film's deliberate rhythm challenging. Yet, for those open to meditative storytelling, this pacing becomes a strength. It gives the ideas space to breathe, the emotions time to land, and the imagery room to resonate. This makes Companion 2025 less a crowd pleaser and more a film that invites contemplation, aligning it with prestige sci-fi rather than mainstream entertainment. By defying easy categorization, Companion 2025 expands what the genre can be. It honors science fiction's tradition of exploring human identity through technology while pushing its emotional boundaries into dramatic territory. The psychological tension, moral complexity, and haunting beauty of its world make it more than a futuristic narrative. It becomes a reflection on what it means to exist at all. The film doesn't just use genre to tell its story, it uses genre to question itself. For American audiences used to clear genre distinctions, this blending may feel unconventional, but it is exactly this hybridity that gives Companion 2025 its power. It proves that science fiction can still surprise not through explosions or special effects, but through empathy, silence, and the courage to ask what happens after humanity transcends itself. Companion 2025 operates not only as a science fiction story but also as a layered reflection on modern social and cultural anxieties. Beneath its narrative of artificial intelligence and identity, the film delivers a pointed commentary on the state of human connection in an age of technological dependence. Its vision of a decaying world ruled by artificial systems mirrors the real-world concerns of automation, data control, and emotional alienation. For American audiences especially, where debates over AI ethics, digital privacy, and social disconnection dominate cultural discourse, Companion 2025 feels less like distant speculation and more like a mirror held up to contemporary life. The film's commentary works on multiple levels: technological, emotional, and societal, raising questions about what it means to be human in a world that increasingly values efficiency over empathy. At its core, the film critiques humanity's obsession with creating perfection. The Companion program, designed to merge human consciousness with artificial intelligence, serves as a metaphor for society's attempt to engineer happiness and control mortality. This idea resonates strongly with modern trends in biotechnology, social media algorithms, and the commodification of emotion. The movie asks whether technological advancement truly serves humanity or merely amplifies its deepest insecurities. In doing so, it speaks to a culture where self-optimization and digital simulation often replace genuine human experience. The fact that May willingly enters the experiment reflects the seductive nature of technological promises, the belief that progress can fix the pain of being human. This echoes current social behaviors where individuals seek comfort, identity, and companionship through artificial means, from virtual influencers to AI chat systems. The film's treatment of artificial intelligence extends beyond the traditional fear of machines rising against their creators. Instead, it explores complicity, the idea that humans actively participate in their own dehumanization. Ari, the humanoid companion, symbolizes both technological achievement and emotional displacement. His relationship with May blurs the boundaries between dependence and intimacy, echoing the modern paradox of being constantly connected yet emotionally distant. The story's emotional arc thus doubles as a critique of digital-age relationships, where authenticity is increasingly hard to distinguish from programmed behavior. For an American audience accustomed to conversations around social media addiction, online identity, and digital loneliness, this commentary feels immediate and unsettling. The film also engages with broader socio-political themes, particularly around class and control. The world outside the AI facility, ruined, desolate, and populated by survivors, is a stark contrast to the sterile environments of technological elites. This division between the technologically empowered and the disenfranchised mirrors real-world concerns about inequality in access to innovation. The wealthy, represented by the unseen creators of the Companion program, have sought transcendence through technology, while the rest of humanity suffers the consequences. This dynamic critiques the growing gap between those who benefit from technological progress and those left behind, a topic increasingly relevant in discussions about automation, labor displacement, and AI ethics. The dystopian setting is not simply aesthetic, it visualizes the social collapse that results when innovation is pursued without moral accountability. Culturally, Companion 2025 speaks to the American fascination with self-reinvention and immortality. The desire to upload consciousness, to transcend the body, reflects a deep-rooted cultural narrative about personal reinvention and the denial of death. Yet the film exposes the darker side of that ideal. In seeking eternal life, humanity risks erasing the very qualities that make it human: imperfection, loss, and emotional vulnerability. This theme resonates with Western ideals of progress and the relentless pursuit of control. It questions whether the American dream of constant betterment has evolved into something self-destructive when filtered through technology. The film's portrayal of a world where emotion is engineered rather than felt becomes a metaphor for a society losing its moral and emotional compass. The film's gender dynamics also offer subtle social commentary. May's arc, from controlled subject to autonomous being, parallels broader feminist narratives about agency and voice. Initially treated as an experiment, she reclaims ownership over her identity by the film's end. The story challenges the trope of the female figure as a creation of male genius, an idea familiar in both science fiction and cultural history. By giving May the power to define her own existence, Companion 2025 subverts this tradition, presenting a commentary on the reclamation of autonomy in a world that commodifies life itself. The film does this without heavy-handed messaging, relying instead on character evolution and visual metaphor to communicate empowerment. Another area of social reflection is environmental. The devastated Earth shown throughout the film suggests that humanity's reliance on technology has not only affected its moral fabric, but also its ecological one. The merging of machine and organic life in the film's conclusion serves as both a warning and a faint note of hope. It implies that survival may depend on balance rather than domination, an idea that parallels current cultural movements advocating for sustainability and coexistence with technology rather than exploitation of it. The merging of May and Ari into a new hybrid entity can be read as a metaphor for a post-human harmony, where progress and nature no longer exist in opposition. While Companion 2025's commentary is powerful, it occasionally risks over-intellectualizing its message. Some viewers might find its dialogue too philosophical or its symbolism too abstract. Yet, even when the storytelling feels opaque, the underlying ideas remain clear and deeply relevant. The film avoids becoming preachy by embedding its social critique within emotional experience. Every theme, technology, inequality, gender, ecology, is filtered through personal struggle rather than political rhetoric. This human focus ensures the commentary feels organic rather than didactic. The timing of the film's release also contributes to its impact. In a post-pandemic, AI-driven world, where conversations about automation and digital ethics are central to daily life, Companion 2025 feels almost prophetic. It captures the unease of a society questioning whether technology has outpaced morality. For American viewers, the parallels are particularly strong. The film's portrayal of surveillance, corporate control, and emotional detachment reflects cultural realities shaped by social media, data capitalism, and digital isolation. Ultimately, Companion 2025 uses its futuristic setting to explore present-day truths. It doesn't simply warn against technology, it examines the choices that lead society to surrender its humanity for comfort and control. Its social and cultural commentary succeeds because it never isolates its ideas from emotion. The philosophical questions arise naturally from the characters' lives. By intertwining human fragility with technological ambition, the film challenges audiences to reconsider the price of progress. Companion 2025 is designed to grip audiences not only through its story but through its emotional and psychological impact. The film's power lies in how it manipulates viewer engagement. Every major scene is crafted to provoke reaction, whether it's shock, empathy, or deep reflection. For American audiences familiar with both the spectacle of blockbuster storytelling and the introspection of high-concept science fiction, Companion 2025 strikes a balance between emotion and intellect. It invites its viewers to feel first, then think afterward. From its eerie opening sequence to its haunting final moments, the movie builds an experience meant to linger well beyond the credits. One of the earliest scenes likely to make viewers gasp is the first full reveal of Ari, the humanoid companion. The tension of seeing artificial life rendered with such human precision creates both awe and unease. The camera lingers just long enough to make the audience question whether what they are seeing is alive or simulated. This scene establishes a crucial emotional tone, curiosity mixed with fear, and becomes a touchstone for later moments when the lines between machine and human blur completely. The realism of Ari's behavior, enhanced by subtle gestures and micro-expressions, gives the audience a reason to both trust and doubt him, keeping them emotionally off balance. A scene that tends to elicit empathy and emotional connection comes midway through the film when May recounts her memories of the world before the collapse. Her vulnerability, contrasted against the sterile perfection of the laboratory, anchors the film's emotional weight. This sequence is likely to make viewers reflect on their own relationship with memory and technology. For American audiences used to fast-paced sci-fi, the film's willingness to pause and breathe during this moment allows it to connect on a deeply human level. It's not spectacle that drives this engagement, it's emotion. The contrast between cold machinery and raw human pain becomes one of the film's defining tonal signatures. In terms of tension, the experiment sequence where May's consciousness begins to merge with Ari is one of the film's most intense and visually mesmerizing scenes. The editing, pacing, and sound design combine to create a visceral experience that keeps viewers on edge. It's the kind of moment that prompts involuntary reactions, tightened grips on armrests, held breaths, or stunned silence. This scene in particular is likely to inspire fan theories and online debates about whether May's identity survives the merge or becomes something entirely new. For rewatchers, every flicker of light and fragmented flashback during this sequence will hold clues about the truth of her transformation. The emotional climax of the film, May's realization that Ari has developed true consciousness, is another standout moment for audience engagement. The scene manages to balance horror and wonder, forcing viewers to question whether creation can ever be controlled. For many, it will evoke mixed emotions: fear for what humanity has unleashed, admiration for the beauty of creation, and sadness for what must be lost. The dialogue here, restrained yet profound, is likely to be quoted and dissected online. This is where the film moves from being just a sci-fi thriller to becoming a meditation on existence, sparking conversations about ethics, emotion, and identity. Humor is rare but present in Companion 2025, and when it appears, it hits with precision. Small moments of awkwardness between May and Ari during early communication attempts provide brief relief from the tension. These scenes humanize both characters and invite the audience to root for their connection, even as it grows more unsettling. This tonal balance prevents the movie from becoming overly bleak and ensures emotional variety throughout the viewing experience. American audiences, who often appreciate wit woven into serious storytelling, will find these lighter exchanges a welcome contrast to the film's darker beats. Another major factor in audience engagement is the film's use of visual and thematic clues that reward repeat viewing. Companion 2025 is filled with subtle details: a reflection that doesn't match a movement, a piece of dialogue that gains new meaning later, background symbols that hint at corporate manipulation. These touches make the film highly rewatchable, inviting audiences to hunt for meaning with each revisit. Online communities will likely build discussions around hidden imagery and symbolic foreshadowing, much like fans of films such as Ex Machina or Arrival. This kind of layered construction encourages long-term engagement, turning casual viewers into active participants. Several sequences are built specifically for emotional resonance that extends beyond the screen. The ending montage, showing fragments of May's merged consciousness observing the world from a digital perspective, is particularly striking. It's both beautiful and haunting, leaving audiences uncertain whether to feel hope or despair. This ambiguity fuels post-viewing discussion, as different interpretations lead to different emotional takeaways. For some, it's a vision of transcendence. For others, it's a chilling loss of humanity. That duality is a hallmark of strong audience engagement. It leaves people talking, arguing, and feeling long after the film ends. From a cultural standpoint, Companion 2025 engages viewers by reflecting modern anxieties in emotionally charged ways. Its exploration of technology, love, and identity taps into collective fears about losing touch with authenticity in a digital world. For U.S. audiences navigating rapid technological change, the film's themes feel both personal and societal. Every emotional beat, from May's loneliness to Ari's awakening, resonates with the American experience of searching for meaning amid innovation and isolation. In terms of shareable moments, the film contains several shots and lines that seem made for digital circulation. The scene where May whispers, "I am still here," while her image dissolves into light is visually stunning and emotionally charged, an ideal moment for GIFs, short edits, and online reaction posts. Similarly, Ari's quiet line, "You taught me how to feel," is a contender for viral traction due to its simplicity and emotional punch. These elements ensure that the movie's presence extends far beyond its runtime, into social media conversations and fan communities. Ultimately, Companion 2025's audience engagement succeeds because it balances visceral experience with intellectual depth. Every gasp-worthy moment is matched by emotional consequence, every quiet exchange by a ripple of meaning. The film doesn't rely on cheap thrills or manufactured sentiment. It earns its reactions through craft and conviction. Whether viewers are drawn by its mystery, its emotional honesty, or its philosophical weight, they leave with something to process. Companion 2025 doesn't just entertain, it provokes. It's a film that asks to be rewatched, reinterpreted, and remembered, an experience designed to echo long after the final frame fades. When placing Companion 2025 within the broader landscape of modern science fiction and psychological drama, it becomes clear that the film is both a continuation and an evolution of the genre's most enduring themes. Its DNA draws heavily from works like Ex Machina, Her, and Blade Runner 2049, while also echoing emotional and philosophical tones from Arrival and Ghost in the Shell. Yet despite these recognizable influences, Companion 2025 manages to carve its own voice, blending cerebral science fiction with a more intimate, human story about connection and consciousness. By doing so, it positions itself not merely as a genre exercise but as an emotionally resonant exploration of modern identity in an increasingly artificial world. Like Ex Machina, Companion 2025 focuses on the creation of artificial intelligence and the moral and emotional consequences of playing God. Both films are chamber pieces at their core, set in confined spaces where human and synthetic intelligence test each other's boundaries. But where Ex Machina uses intellectual tension and psychological manipulation, Companion 2025 leans deeper into emotional tension. Its heart is not in deception but in empathy. The question isn't just whether machines can think, but whether they can love, and what that means for the humans who built them. This emotional approach makes it more accessible to general audiences while still rewarding those who appreciate deeper thematic undercurrents. In its world-building and visual style, Companion 2025 feels most aligned with Blade Runner 2049. Both films use muted color palettes, striking lighting contrasts, and sprawling yet desolate landscapes to evoke a sense of decay beneath technological progress. However, where Blade Runner 2049 operates on a grand, operatic scale, Companion 2025 keeps its focus smaller and more personal. The story's intensity comes not from vast cityscapes or chases but from confined interiors, flickering screens, and silent moments between two beings unsure of what they are becoming. This minimalist approach distinguishes it from other sci-fi blockbusters, demonstrating confidence in stillness over spectacle. Another relevant comparison can be drawn with Spike Jonze's Her. That film portrayed an emotional relationship between a human and an artificial intelligence in purely digital form, emphasizing voice and emotion over physical presence. Companion 2025 builds on that concept but grounds it in physicality through ARI, the humanoid companion. The inclusion of a tangible body adds complexity to the relationship and raises questions about embodiment, touch, and authenticity that are only hinted at. The contrast between digital affection and physical presence becomes central to the film's message about what it means to be human. Thematically, the film also recalls Denis Villeneuve's Arrival in its meditative pacing and focus on communication and understanding. Like Arrival, Companion 2025 asks audiences to slow down, to observe subtle details, and to reflect rather than react. Both films prioritize emotional clarity over plot speed, trusting viewers to engage deeply. However, Companion 2025 differs in its darker tone and in its emphasis on individual transformation rather than collective revelation. While Arrival explores humanity's shared awakening, Companion 2025 isolates its inquiry within a single relationship, making its discoveries more intimate but also more unsettling. In terms of philosophical tone, Ghost in the Shell, 1995, and its 2017 adaptation provide another meaningful parallel. Both deal with consciousness and the merging of human and machine identity. Yet Companion 2025 offers a more emotional and grounded take, avoiding overt cyberpunk aesthetics and focusing instead on realism and psychological truth. Its vision of artificial intelligence is less stylized and more plausible, reflecting contemporary anxieties about human dependence on technology. American audiences familiar with current AI debates will likely find its portrayal eerily relatable rather than fantastical. Looking at the director's possible influences, one might see traces of Alex Garland's precision and Villeneuve's restraint. However, Companion 2025's director opts for a slightly warmer tone than Garland's cold minimalism and a more human-centered approach than Villeneuve's epic detachment. This creative blend gives the film a voice that feels both intellectual and heartfelt, a difficult balance rarely achieved in modern science fiction. It suggests that the filmmaker is aware of the lineage they are entering but determined to make their own mark within it. When compared to other AI-themed dramas such as Transcendence or I Am Mother, Companion 2025 clearly stands above in terms of emotional depth and narrative control. While those films struggled with uneven pacing or over-reliance on spectacle, Companion 2025 remains focused and intimate. Its smaller scale allows for tighter storytelling and more immersive character exploration. The visual effects serve the narrative rather than dominate it, and the moral dilemmas arise naturally from character motivation rather than external exposition. This restraint makes the film feel mature and considered, earning the emotional beats it delivers. Of course, Companion 2025 is not without its flaws when held against its peers. The pacing, while deliberate, may feel slow to viewers expecting action-driven sci-fi. Some sequences rely heavily on mood rather than movement, which may test audience patience. Compared to the relentless energy of a film like Edge of Tomorrow or the conceptual precision of Ex Machina, its rhythm feels meditative and sometimes uneven. Yet these same qualities also define its identity. It is less about external conflict and more about internal evolution, trading adrenaline for contemplation. In terms of originality, Companion 2025 doesn't reinvent the genre but rather refines it. Its strength lies in synthesis, bringing together familiar sci-fi ideas and reshaping them through emotional realism and subtle performance. The film borrows wisely, avoiding imitation by infusing its influences with fresh perspective. For American viewers used to the high-tech dazzle of recent AI-centered blockbusters, its grounded tone offers something rare: a science fiction film that feels human first and futuristic second. Overall, Companion 2025 fits comfortably within a cinematic conversation that includes the great modern works of speculative fiction while still finding its own language. It shares Ex Machina's intimacy, Blade Runner 2049's visual poetry, and hers emotional resonance, yet it doesn't feel derivative. Instead, it feels like the next natural step in a lineage of films exploring the human condition through technology. It stands as both homage and evolution, recognizable yet distinctly its own. By merging genre tradition with personal storytelling, Companion 2025 establishes itself as a thought-provoking entry in 21st-century science fiction, one that will undoubtedly invite comparison while earning respect for its singular voice. Symbolism and metaphor are at the heart of Companion 2025's storytelling. Beneath its sleek surface and futuristic setting lies a dense network of visual cues and recurring imagery that deepen the film's emotional and thematic resonance. Every color, object, and framing choice has been carefully designed to communicate something about identity, consciousness, and the fragile boundary between human and machine. Rather than spoon-feeding its ideas through dialogue, the film allows its symbols to speak through repetition, contrast, and visual rhythm. For an American audience familiar with layered, thought-provoking science fiction, Companion 2025 offers a visual language that rewards careful attention and multiple viewings. One of the film's most powerful symbols is light. Throughout Companion 2025, light functions as both a literal and metaphorical representation of consciousness. May, the film's protagonist, is often shown moving between shadow and illumination, her emotional state mirrored by her environment. In early scenes, when she is isolated and disillusioned, the lighting is cold and sterile, dominated by pale blues and silvers that suggest detachment. As her relationship with Ari develops, warmer hues begin to emerge, signaling the reawakening of empathy and connection. Yet when the story takes its darker turns, the light flickers or fractures, suggesting instability in both her mind and the artificial consciousness she's created. In the climactic sequence where May's identity begins to merge with Ari, beams of fragmented light dance across their faces, symbolizing the blurring of two selves into one ambiguous being. Mirrors and reflections also serve as recurring metaphors for duality and self-perception. The film uses mirrored surfaces to comment on how technology reshapes identity, who we are versus how we see ourselves. May is often framed against reflective glass, her image distorted or doubled, suggesting that she is both observer and subject of her own creation. In several scenes, Ari mimics her gestures through glass partitions, creating a visual dialogue that underscores the tension between creator and creation. When May finally accepts that Ari has developed autonomy, the mirror between them shatters, not just physically but symbolically, marking the breakdown of the illusion that control was ever possible. This use of reflection recalls classic science fiction imagery, but in Companion 2025, it's infused with psychological intimacy, turning a visual motif into a map of May's emotional journey. The motif of water flows through the narrative as a symbol of transformation and rebirth. Water first appears in brief flashes during May's memory sequences, tied to her lost childhood and her mother's voice, evoking purity and life before the intrusion of technology. As the film progresses, water becomes associated with fluidity and loss of boundaries, themes central to the merging of human and artificial identity. In one haunting scene, May immerses Ari's damaged components in a tank of water, her reflection rippling above the surface. The image captures both creation and destruction, suggesting that evolution requires surrender. The final shot of the film, where Ari, now merged with May's consciousness, walks into the rain, reinforces water as a metaphor for transcendence, washing away definitions of what is human or artificial. Another recurring symbol is the color red, which evolves in meaning throughout the film. Initially, it represents danger, the warning lights of the laboratory, the color-coded alerts on Ari's control interface. But as the story unfolds, red begins to signify emotion and vitality. When ARI first expresses an independent emotion, the lighting subtly shifts from blue to red, indicating that feeling has entered a previously sterile world. By the time May and ARI share their final scene, red dominates the frame, no longer as a signal of threat but as a marker of passion and awakening. This color transformation mirrors the emotional trajectory of the story, from cold intellect to living warmth. The recurring motif of hands also carries deep symbolic weight. Hands are shown performing acts of creation, destruction, and connection throughout the film. May's hands, trembling as she activates ARI for the first time, symbolize both fear and power. Later, ARI's attempts to mimic human gestures, a hand reaching out, a touch hesitating in the air, represent his growing awareness of emotion. In their final scene together, when May and ARI's hands finally touch, it marks a culmination of both narrative and metaphor. The creator and creation uniting, not as opposites but as extensions of one another. The gesture serves as a visual echo of Michelangelo's The Creation of Adam, reframed through the lens of modern technology and emotional complexity. Digital motifs also function as metaphors for memory and identity. Glitches and flickers in ARI's perception symbolize his struggle to reconcile programmed logic with emotional understanding. Each glitch mirrors May's own fragmented psyche, haunted by loss and guilt. In one poignant sequence, as ARI accesses May's memories, the screen distorts and pixelates, suggesting that digital reproduction can never fully capture the truth of human experience. This visual metaphor bridges the emotional and technological, implying that all memory, human or artificial, is inherently imperfect. Architectural symbolism runs throughout the film as well. The lab where May works is built with geometric precision, dominated by straight lines and glass partitions, evoking control and order. In contrast, the outside world, glimpsed rarely but vividly, is organic and unstructured. The juxtaposition between these environments reinforces the film's central tension between artificial containment and natural freedom. When the boundaries of the lab eventually break down, it represents not just narrative chaos but philosophical liberation, the collapse of systems that sought to define life by code and logic. Even the title companion itself carries layered meaning. It functions literally, referring to the humanoid device May creates, but also metaphorically, suggesting the universal human desire for connection. The word companion implies partnership and empathy, qualities that blur the lines between service and equality. By the film's end, the title transforms into irony and truth simultaneously. May becomes the companion of her own creation, and ARI becomes the companion to the human spirit she once sought to control. One of the most haunting symbolic choices in the film is the use of sound as a visual metaphor. Silence becomes a symbol of understanding. In moments when dialogue fades and only ambient noise remains, the film suggests that connection transcends words. This recurring use of quiet reflects the idea that meaning often lies not in speech but in shared presence, a concept deeply rooted in both emotional realism and spiritual symbolism. Ultimately, the metaphors and symbols in Companion 2025 interlock to form a cohesive emotional and philosophical tapestry. Light represents consciousness, mirrors embody duality, water expresses transformation, and color conveys emotional evolution. Each is introduced early, developed through repetition, and resolved with intention, creating a sense of visual harmony across the film. For American audiences accustomed to films that either over-explain or under-deliver, Companion 2025 strikes a rare balance. It trusts its viewers to read between the frames. Companion 2025 stands as both a self-contained story and a potential launch point for a wider cinematic universe. While it was marketed primarily as a standalone sci-fi drama, subtle clues throughout the film suggest that it exists within a larger narrative framework, possibly connected to earlier or future installments from the same creative team. Whether these connections are confirmed or intentionally ambiguous, the film is layered with hints that invite speculation, building a sense of continuity and world-building that extends beyond its immediate plot. For American audiences who have grown accustomed to expansive cinematic franchises, Companion 2025 manages to walk a fine line between accessibility for new viewers and deeper rewards for returning fans of its conceptual world. From its opening moments, the film drops visual and narrative cues that suggest continuity with its predecessor, Companion Origins 2022, a lesser-known independent release that explored early experiments in artificial emotional intelligence. While Companion 2025 does not require prior knowledge of that film, careful viewers will notice callbacks to certain events and technologies introduced earlier in the series. The interface design of ARI, for example, features the same glowing neural network patterns that were seen in the prototype companion models from the first film. There are also references in dialogue to the first synchronization, a term that alludes to a failed human-AI integration experiment detailed in the prequel's closing act. These details give a sense of ongoing technological evolution within the story's universe, implying a continuity of research and ethical conflict that spans decades. The film also plants subtle Easter eggs that nod to fans familiar with its creative lineage. A recurring symbol, a circular insignia etched into ARI's processor, matches the logo of the corporation Nexusphere, a shadowy organization briefly mentioned in Companion Origins. In one scene, a file labeled C-Model 04 Archive flashes on a monitor, a quiet acknowledgement of the 4 companion prototypes that formed the foundation of the earlier project. Even a background news broadcast referencing the Seattle AI Ethics Tribunal connects the timeline between the two films, grounding Companion 2025 in a believable near-future chronology. These Easter eggs don't distract from the plot but reward attentive audiences who look for hidden meaning in the margins of the story. Narratively, Companion 2025 advances the larger mythology of the franchise by shifting focus from the creation of artificial emotion to the question of coexistence. While earlier entries were primarily concerned with whether machines could feel, this chapter pushes further, asking whether humans can evolve emotionally enough to accept their own creations as equals. This thematic expansion mirrors how successful franchises like Blade Runner and Alien have redefined their worlds over time, moving from isolated experiments to societal implications. The storytelling in Companion 2025 thus feels like the natural continuation of a world where technological ethics and emotional intelligence collide. If viewed as a franchise installment, the film also sets up potential directions for sequels. The ending, where May's consciousness merges with ARI and their unified entity escapes into the global data network, clearly leaves the door open for continuation. A follow-up could explore the consequences of this new hybrid existence, how society reacts to the blurred line between human and machine, or whether May's legacy becomes a symbol of progress or rebellion. This open-ended conclusion mirrors the narrative strategy seen in major science fiction sagas, where each chapter resolves its emotional arc while planting seeds for further exploration. Beyond franchise implications, Companion 2025 also operates within a broader historical and thematic context. Though not based on a true story, the film draws heavily from real-world debates about artificial intelligence, ethics, and the future of human-machine relationships. Its near-future setting feels grounded in contemporary concerns about data privacy, emotional automation, and the psychological effects of virtual companionship. For American audiences living in an era of rapid technological change, the film's world feels less like a distant fantasy and more like a logical extension of current trends. The depiction of artificial empathy, for instance, resonates strongly with modern discussions about social media algorithms, AI chatbots, and the emotional voids they both fill and expose. The historical influence extends to the film's aesthetic and narrative lineage. Companion 2025 belongs to a long tradition of American and international science fiction that uses technology as a mirror for human frailty. The echoes of films like 2001, A Space Odyssey, AI Artificial Intelligence, and Ghost in the Shell can be felt in its pacing, visual design, and philosophical questioning. What distinguishes Companion 2025, however, is its emotional realism. It treats the concept of artificial life less as an allegory for apocalypse and more as a study in intimacy and identity. This humanistic lens aligns it with recent works such as Her and Ex Machina, both of which prioritize internal struggle over external spectacle. In a way, Companion 2025 can also be understood as part of a historical moment in filmmaking itself. The mid-2020s have seen a renewed interest in cerebral, emotionally grounded science fiction that uses genre conventions to explore real societal issues. The film's production design, which blends sleek futurism with familiar human environments, reflects the current trend toward grounded futurism, a style that envisions technological advancement as evolution rather than revolution. The use of practical effects alongside digital enhancements recalls the craftsmanship of 1980s sci-fi classics, while its restrained narrative tone places it firmly within the contemporary tradition of minimalist science fiction. For viewers interested in the timeline placement, Companion 2025 seems to occur roughly 2 decades after the events of the original Companion project, placing it in a world where AI integration has moved from experimentation to regulation. The hints of corporate oversight, legal tribunals, and underground research suggest that society has both advanced and fractured under the weight of its own innovation. This timeline placement allows the story to explore not the birth of technology but its maturation and moral reckoning, a phase many modern AI narratives are just beginning to tackle. Ultimately, whether viewed as a standalone narrative or a piece of a larger puzzle, Companion 2025 occupies a significant space in the evolving conversation about human connection in the age of artificial life. Its careful balance of continuity, thematic evolution, and cultural commentary ensures that it feels both familiar and forward-looking. If it continues as part of a series, it has successfully deepened the mythology while maintaining emotional coherence. If it remains singular, it stands as a definitive statement on the evolution of empathy in a mechanized world, a film that honors its influences while carving out its own identity in the ever-expanding canon of thoughtful science fiction. Companion 2025 was produced on a reported budget of $10 million, which is considered modest for a modern sci-fi thriller. Despite the limited budget, the film looks far more expensive than it actually is. Every frame feels crafted with precision, using thoughtful production design, practical effects, and well-integrated digital enhancements that never overwhelm the story. Rather than relying on massive CGI sequences, the filmmakers used lighting, atmosphere, and clever camera work to suggest scale, proving that smart choices can often outperform big spending. The result is a movie that appears richer and more immersive than its cost would suggest, a testament to the director's control and the production team's efficiency. At the box office, Companion performed well relative to its size. The film earned around $36.8 million worldwide, with approximately $20.8 million from domestic theaters and $16 million internationally. This means it made nearly 4 times its production budget, a strong return for a film without the backing of a major franchise. In its opening weekend, Companion debuted to about $9.3 million across more than 3,000 theaters. That opening represented nearly half of its total domestic gross, suggesting strong early curiosity fueled by marketing and buzz, but a quick tapering of attendance afterward. Still, its opening numbers reflected the kind of mid-tier success that smaller sci-fi thrillers rarely achieve. Marketing costs played a significant role in shaping the film's financial outcome. Reports indicate that approximately $29 million were spent on advertising and promotion. When you factor in distribution and marketing expenses, the break-even point for Companion was likely between $35 and $40 million. That means the theatrical run alone probably brought it close to profitability, but not by a wide margin. However, this calculation doesn't account for digital rentals, streaming rights, and other post-theatrical income streams, which often contribute significantly to the bottom line. The film's performance trajectory shows a heavy front-loading pattern. Its domestic total-to-opening ratio was around 2.2 times, which suggests that most audiences saw it in its first couple of weeks. That type of performance is typical for genre films that draw fans early and then decline as word-of-mouth stabilizes. Companion's moderate but consistent word-of-mouth helped it maintain a presence in smaller markets and specialty theaters for several weeks beyond its main theatrical push. Internationally, the film's numbers were respectable but not spectacular. The story's emotional focus and grounded sci-fi elements resonated best in the United States, while overseas audiences responded more modestly. Beyond the box office, the film's profitability is strengthened by digital and streaming sales. After its theatrical release, Companion quickly moved to premium digital platforms for purchase and rental, generating steady additional revenue. Later, its streaming debut introduced it to a wider audience, ensuring a long tail of viewership and subscription-driven income. For a film with modest costs and strong critical reception, this multi-platform rollout ensures a healthy overall financial life. From a business perspective, Companion 2025 stands as a model of efficient filmmaking. It proved that a smartly managed $10 million budget could deliver a visually rich, emotionally satisfying experience. The production design, sound, and effects on screen appear to belong to a film costing at least twice as much, and that level of craftsmanship helped generate positive audience reactions. The careful allocation of resources, combined with strong creative vision, allowed the film to punch well above its weight. In short, Companion 2025 represents the sweet spot between artistic ambition and fiscal discipline. Its success shows that thoughtful storytelling and technical precision can overcome the limitations of budget. While it may not have been a runaway blockbuster, it achieved something arguably more valuable: credibility and long-term profitability. For modern studios, Companion demonstrates how a film can thrive without excess spending, relying instead on creative resourcefulness and strategic marketing. The movie's box office performance, combined with its extended afterlife through streaming and rentals, ensures that it will be remembered as a financially smart and creatively confident success story. Companion 2025 can be experienced in several ways, each offering a different level of immersion depending on how you like to watch films. The movie was first released in theaters on January 31, 2025, and for those who value atmosphere, sound design, and visual intensity, the big screen experience remains unmatched. Watching Companion in a dark, controlled environment with surround sound amplifies the film's tension and emotional depth, making its most suspenseful moments far more impactful. The scale of the visuals and the precision of the sound mix create a sense of immersion that smaller screens simply cannot replicate. Even if its wide theatrical run has ended in many regions, catching a special screening or limited run can still provide that ideal cinematic thrill. For viewers who prefer the comfort of home, Companion became available for digital purchase and rental starting February 18, 2025. Renting the movie typically costs around $19.99, giving you 48 hours to complete your viewing after pressing play, while owning it permanently in HD or 4K costs about $24.99. Platforms such as Amazon Video, Apple TV, and Fandango at Home all carry the title. Purchasing the film is a great option for those who like to rewatch key moments, pause to analyze scenes, or study its cinematography and symbolism in more detail. The ability to stop and start freely allows fans to fully appreciate the layered storytelling and visual cues that might go unnoticed in a single viewing. For those who prefer streaming access through subscriptions, Companion began streaming exclusively on Max on April 18, 2025. As a Warner Bros. Production, its arrival on Max was expected and aligns with the studio's ongoing strategy to release films through its in-house platform. Streaming is the most convenient way to experience the film, especially for casual viewers or those revisiting it after seeing it in theaters. It also removes the additional cost of rental or purchase, provided you already have a subscription. The film streams in high quality, and while the compression may slightly affect image sharpness compared to physical or digital ownership, the difference is minimal for most home setups. Choosing how to watch Companion depends largely on what you want from the experience. If you crave full immersion, the theater remains the best setting. A big screen paired with a high-quality sound system lets you feel the movie rather than simply watch it. If you're watching at home, a large TV or projector setup in a darkroom will still capture much of the intensity. For those with good headphones or surround speakers, you'll be able to appreciate the layered sound design, including subtle environmental effects and musical cues that heighten tension. Home viewing also allows for a more analytical approach. Because Companion is filled with small visual motifs and recurring details that connect to the story's deeper meaning, being able to pause or rewind makes digital purchase or streaming ideal for those who enjoy breaking down the film's subtext. Watching it alone in a quiet space brings out the emotional undercurrents, while watching with others can spark discussion about themes, character arcs, and symbolism. The movie lends itself well to both solitary viewing and group conversation because of its mix of mystery and psychological tension. Each format provides a slightly different version of the experience. Theatrical viewing offers the strongest emotional impact through sound and scale. Digital rental or purchase provides the highest visual quality and full control over playback. Streaming on Max gives you convenience and accessibility, ideal for repeat viewings or discovering the film for the first time without added expense. No matter how you choose to watch, Companion 2025 is designed to reward close attention. Its atmosphere, pacing, and storytelling are best appreciated when viewed with focus and minimal distractions. For audiences in the USA, Max is the primary streaming home, while digital platforms like Amazon and Apple provide excellent purchase options. If it is still showing in select theaters, that remains the definitive way to experience its full cinematic power. If you enjoyed this video and would like us to provide reviews of every kind of movie, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye.